Bruce Wayne. And on this edition of American Rifleman News Television, our ARN producers travel to Las Vegas, Nevada for the 24th annual Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show. Known simply as the SHOT Show, over 8,000 manufacturers, distributors, and firearms associations gather from around the world and are joined by U.S. agencies like the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The mission of SHOT is to preview new products, create or extend business relationships, and to keep abreast of the new federal, state, and local gun laws or trends that may affect the firearms community. So sit back and watch as the movers and shakers of the firearm industry comment on the new laws that have been instituted on January 1st, 2002.
Hey Mike, how are you doing?
Oh, I love it. Well, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How are you today?
Good. Would you tell us your name and what about your company?
Certainly. My name is David Kochel. I work for Mekar. Mekar is an Italian manufacturing company that manufactures firearm magazines exclusively. They started manufacturing magazines in 1965. Currently, they're the world's largest OEM supplier of magazines. We manufacture magazines for almost every major firearms manufacturer throughout the world.
How many different variations would you guess?
Overall, we manufacture about 250 different magazines.
Now, in 1994, we had a discussion about that, about the crime bill, and about large capacity magazines.
Yes.
Could you kind of run us through the process for your particular company?
Yes, in 1994, when the crime bill went into effect, that limited the magazine capacity to 10 rounds for civilian use, and anything above 10 rounds is restricted for military, government, and law enforcement use. Mekar was in a situation where, being an Italian manufacturing company, it was legal to continue to sell pre-ban high-capacity magazines after that point from components that were manufactured prior to the bill going into effect. Mekar, though, once again being an Italian manufacturing company, could not import those magazines unless they were had the stamping on them for restricting for law enforcement.
So that how much did that impact the company?
Oh, it impacted the company a great deal. Other magazine manufacturers like USA and ProMag that were still selling the pre-ban high-capacity magazines. After that point, Mekar unfortunately did not have any of those magazines left due to the fact that we could not import them in. We had to convert all of our magazines to 10-round versions, and it was very difficult trying to sell a 10-round magazine opposed to a higher capacity magazine for the same model firearm.
After 1994, what happened to some of your competitors?
Some of the competitors, now that the quality of the Mekar magazines are much better than all of our competitors, people realize that since the pre-ban high-capacity magazines are going down in volume, that our 10-round magazines are superior in quality, so our business has gone up.
So what do you think about the new laws for the drop testers? The clips come into this play at all in part of the testing?
In the testing for the drop?
For certified firearms, let's say in California.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Well, they have they have a drop test there to determine whether the firearm is safe and.
Oh yeah. I know for manufacturing, there's always a drop test required by manufacturers. When we supply magazines like Smith & Wesson, Browning, they do drop tests on them to make sure that the magazine will not break open or cause a malfunction of the firearm.
I guess what I'm saying to you is that when they drop test a factory magazine, it's usually with a factory magazine. Now, are we looking at a time when perhaps we'd have to insert every different type of magazine known to man to do the same drop test to determine that it was safe to own the firearm?
No, I really believe that test, dropping the test of magazine really shouldn't affect that at all. The way that Mekar does design their magazines, it'll retain the bullet, so there shouldn't be any misfire at all of a firearm.
Well, let me ask you this: where is Mekar going as far as their new marketing for this coming year? Where's your best market right now?
Our big push right now is in the law enforcement market because Mekar does OEM manufacturing for many different accounts. We now have a law enforcement line of magazines that we're trying to offer to law enforcement, to military and government contracts, to be able to offer them a high-quality magazine at a reasonable price.
And those are all the what we call the large capacity magazines. Correct. And those are only allowed in how many states would allow that?
For high capacity for law enforcement, that you can purchase that in any state. However, for civilian use, the pre-ban high capacity magazines, there are many states that restrict: California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, for a few that do restrict consumer that they cannot purchase the high capacity magazine, which is something that we're hearing that the law on that, which was signed in 1994, may not be signed again. It was for a 10-year period, and that when the law does expire, that the president will not sign for another 10 years, have that law be in effect.
Well, you've been very forthcoming with us. We want to thank you from American Rifleman News Television.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The Century Safe has been around since the early 30s. They've been the leader in fire protection and security storage for the last 70 years. We've entered the gun safe business about 2 years ago. We entered it looking at a niche between the $299 up to about $1,000 retail level.
So, Joe, tell me, how have the new laws in California affected your business?
Well, I think it's affected it in a positive way. We believe in affordable security. We've developed products specifically that meet or exceed the California specification with regards to thickness of the door, number of locking bolts, lock itself, and all the elements that are required.
Are these safes fireproof?
Many are not, some are. We've just introduced a line, actually 2 new safes that not only pass or exceed the California rating, but also provide certified fire protection with regards to, one unit is UL rated at 1550 degrees Fahrenheit for a half hour, also passes the UL explosion test, as well as another unit that is developed. It's got a 1200 degree rating, also passes an explosion test, and that's certified by Edison Testing Labs, or ETL.
Well, let me ask you this: do you have also ballistic proof containers for pistols or revolvers?
We have what we call our security safe line. They're not specifically oriented towards pistols. Our focus in our business is on the long gun business.
Well, let me ask you this one. Going into gun stores now, are you trying to market your products out there actually on the retail side of the gun stores?
Yeah, we both have a retail line for what would be called DIY or mass market, as well as an exclusive line for the small dealers in the traditional trade.
Also, do you offer are there any differences in the types of gun safes that would be approved in California for just the average consumer that wants to go out and purchase a firearm, as opposed to, let's say, an FFL dealer or someone who's interested in more sturdier protection?
There's no difference with regards to the actual legislation, but we do offer different levels of protection depending on the level of security that the consumer wants.
Let me ask you this one last question. Last year, before the law went into, when did the law come into effect?
Well, it was January 1st. You actually had to have the product in place.
So no one can buy a firearm in California unless they've got a gun safe right now, from now on?
Either a gun safe or a locking device. Part of the legislation indicates that you as well have to have a trigger lock.
Well, from Century's point of view, you think that this law will become a nationwide law soon?
We already know of a couple of states that are in committee studying the actual California law to see if they can bring it into those states as well. So yeah, I believe it is going to, because of all the just the media hype. I think states are definitely looking at some sort of a law. And what they typically do in legislation is that there's already a law in the books in one state, they literally lift the law oftentimes and just duplicate it in their state.
So what you're saying is what we're maybe looking at is an ipso facto situation where if you've got firearms in the home, eventually you may have to get a safe, no matter whether you bought the gun this year or in years past.
Right, or prove that you already have a safe that meets the specifications.
How do they do that when they go to the gun dealers? How do you prove actual ownership of a safe? Do you have to show receipt, or what's the process
I
at
think
this point?
that element is still kind of unresolved at this moment. It's my understanding that it is a receipt process, show that you have ownership, but that hasn't really been clearly identified, at least up to the manufacturers yet.
Well, Joe, we appreciate your time. Thank you for having Century Safe make a comment for American Rifleman News Television.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
What's your name, and tell us about your company here.
Well, my name is Doug Donnelly, and I'm president of U.S. Firearms, and we're located in Hartford, Connecticut. Today we're at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas, Nevada, the SHOT Show for 2002, and we've done a lot of these shows over the years, but this booth is of particular pride for us because we brought with us one of the most historic displays that has been around, and
Do you make these guns?
what we call our famous wheel of guns.
Wow.
Yes. We make a lot of cowboy style single action revolvers, and used in competitions all over the United States, and we export to Europe and across the world.
Well, tell us, what about current gun laws in both, not just in California, which are fairly onerous, but for the United States right now? How are those affecting your business and what you're doing?
Well, like a lot of gun laws, a lot of them don't make a whole lot of sense. And what I wish would happen is that if someone's going to come up with a new traffic law, they test the traffic law and they get some civil engineers involved who know how to drive. A lot of these people who make gun laws don't even know how to shoot. So it'd be a good idea if they want to institute new, more encompassing gun laws that they first ask the people who actually do the shooting, do the competing and the target work, and use these products, whether the existing laws are effective. If they're not effective, then we can help to change it. But to simply make new laws without regard to what those laws mean for law-abiding people as well as manufacturers, it's a waste of effort.
Let me ask you this. There's a drop test that's necessary in California now. Don't know how far that drop test is, but would any of your firearms here that you manufacture with such loving care and great craftsmanship meet any of the drop tests that they're asking for in California?
Probably not. The reason is because the firearms as they're designed are designed with somewhat of a 19th century historic correctness, and that doesn't mean that you forget about where a muzzle of a gun should be pointed. It just means that today's our client or our customer is looking for a certain quality level, and they're looking for a certain authenticity level, and that's what we make. And the laws in some of their home states are starting to prohibit them from owning classic firearms like these. It's almost like you can't drive your Model T Ford anymore because it doesn't have airbags, it doesn't have seat belts, and it means that you've got to get rid of your car collection.
What about trigger locks? Do you offer a trigger lock when you sell any of your firearms?
We do offer a trigger lock, and it was mandated that every firearm be sold with a trigger lock, especially in the state of New York and other states as well. But one thing that's particularly interesting is that all firearms that get shipped into Maryland and New York and some other states, they require a spent cartridge casing to be included. And this is interesting because in a revolver like the ones we make at U.S. Firearms, the cartridge case stays in the gun after you're done shooting. So it's not like some of these bank robbers are going to go in there and fire their single action and then spend some time ejecting the cartridge cases so someone has a chance to trace those things. So that's a typical example of a law that may be a good idea for an automatic shotgun or for semi-auto pistol or something like that. It doesn't apply to revolvers.
Let me ask this. This is kind of important for consumers.
Yeah.
The cost of your firearms is probably maintained steadily over a while, but since the new laws come in, obviously you're going to pass the cost of trigger locks and any other situations on to the consumer. How much do you think it's cost the consumer just in additional gun laws, just for your company alone?
On a per piece basis, average, because we have a lot of high-end guns too, and you wouldn't see the price difference.
Sure.
But, or you tend not to have it reflected as much.
In an average piece?
Probably, if we expressed it this way, if we said that the time our company spends in compliance with different state laws and in compliance with different federal laws, it's a time wasting of probably several thousand man-hours per year. And as different states have different compliance regulations, it means that we, as a manufacturer, now we have to become even more involved.
So actually what you're saying is that somebody should buy one of your firearms right now, because the price, because of additional legislation, is probably going to go up.
Well, they can buy one anytime they'd like to, and we'd be happy to make it for them. But the fact is, there is a cost associated with it. It may not always be borne out initially in product price, but it's borne out in our own personal time, sometimes trying to figure out what does the law mean. And it's a really, for us as a revolver manufacturing company, some of these, using the spent cartridge case issue as an example, the law technically does not apply to our product line, and yet because they've defined the law in such a way, it applies to us because it is a firearm, and therefore we spend extra product, packaging, and manufacturing cost and people cost staying abreast of all the changes.
Well, listen, have a great show, and I hope that it's a little easier for you sometime here in the future.
Thank you very much.
So, hi, Steve. Can you tell us your full name and what you do for Benelli?
I'm Steve McLean. I'm the Director of Marketing, Brand Marketing and Communications for Benelli USA.
So how long have you been with Benelli?
3 years now.
And prior to that?
I was with Inner Arms, and before that the NRA.
So tell us what's going on with Benelli as far as their firearm line. If they had to adjust since all of the laws have passed in the last couple of years?
Well, we've designed a new chamber lock, which has passed the California test. They, even using power tools, they could not get the lock out of the chamber. So, in using that, that's really the only thing we've had to do to accommodate the California laws. We don't sell anything other than shotguns. We no longer sell pistols or anything like that, so that's not a problem for us in California as well.
You can't use certain stocks, though, and you can't sell certain stocks in California or Massachusetts or other states. Is that right?
Well, there's
pistol grip stocks is what I'm talking about, basically.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any problems that we've run into with that. There could be something that I'm not aware of, though. But as far as I know, we still sell our tactical shotguns in California.
But that would be to police and law enforcement only?
Could be. I'm really not sure on that.
Let me ask you this. There's a drop test that's necessary to certify all firearms in California. Has Benelli gone through that process, and is your full line of shotguns available to the public in California?
Yes, it is. It's as far as the drop tests go, our guns all go through that, just as our own procedures and proofing tests on our guns, and as far as I'm aware of, as the current laws go, all of our guns are available to California, other than NFA weapons, which are like our entry shotgun, which is a 14.5-inch barrel, and guns like that.
You know, in California, they have what's called a centralized list of firearms dealers, and unless you pay an annual fee, you can't be on that list, and you cannot sell firearms in California. Is that the same thing for the manufacturers? You have to be on a centralized California list in order to sell your product in California?
That would be news to me. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. What about anything else that you see on the horizon as far as storage of firearms is concerned that would affect Benelli in any way?
Nothing that I see. Like I said, we have the trigger locks or the chamber lock for the Benelli. I haven't heard of anything else on the horizon.
Well, listen, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your time.
Sure. Welcome.
My name is Maria Berti. I am with the Berti USA. I've been with the business since its beginning, since I founded it. And I import reproduction historical firearms, American firearms from Italy. And
well, let me ask you this. How many years have you been in this business?
since 1987.
So you know...
But actually all my life, because my father was the manufacturer, so I really grew up.
Exactly. So tell me, have you noticed a big change in the gun laws in California and also in the United States in the last few years?
Well, I definitely have noticed. I've been involved with all the evolutions of these. I have to say that our business in particular has not been affected very much because at the same time we have been experiencing a growth in this type of
single action firearms.
Shooting.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big, powerful organization now.
Yeah, and they are, I guess it's more like of a sporting type of firearms. And
one of the things that has been a big problem in California is that even though they require trigger locks, they have a tough time with lever actions. And I noticed that you manufacture lever action firearms.
Yes,
so how do you supply a trigger lock?
We just work with a gun lock manufacturer who is in the work of having his lock approved by the state of California for the lever action rifle.
Now, one of the things also that's very important is that because of the antique nature of your firearms, they may not meet the drop test in California. Have you experienced any problem with the drop test?
No. In fact, that is the case. With the 1873 single action, we didn't have to go through that.
You did not have to certify these, but they're still considered certified firearms so that you can trade or sell them in California without the drop test. So they're exempt, actually.
Right.
Are there other firearms that are exempt?
All of our lines, I believe, because they are historical firearms.
So actually business has been pretty good for you?
Yes.
But and you haven't had really any exposure yet to what the California gun laws or the Massachusetts or
yes,
New York?
actually every state has different gun laws, and even though California was more yielding to our type of firearms, while Massachusetts is excluding all type of firearms our firearms would not comply right now as they are with the Massachusetts, so we cannot sell our firearms in Massachusetts, although the market, our market there was very small. So.
What about Connecticut? Is that...
Connecticut is not a problem. We've had problems with
New York?
New York, also we solved the problems with New York because the distributors and the dealers can fire the guns. New York requires that you fire and put the fired shells in with the gun, and they can do that themselves. So,
listen, we just want to thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the Godspeed in what you do.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
When I get back, I'm going to send you pricing on this, some of the quality costs I try to sell. All right, I'm ready. I'll show you the part.
So Joe, you're with Daisy. Tell us about Daisy and your relationship with Daisy.
Oh, what a great company. Daisy's 115 years old and one of very few companies in the United States that can say they've been making the same product for that many years. Daisy goes back as old as Coca-Cola, about 1886. The first Daisy was made really as a premium item to give away to farmers who bought a windmill from the Plymouth Iron Windmill Company. The company was so successful with the air gun, they named it the Daisy, they named the company the Daisy, and well, you know, the rest is history.
Well, let me ask you this. The kids nowadays, the mothers will all want to know how many eyes got put out with Daisy BB guns.
Well, I'll tell you that making a safe product and promoting the safe use of a product is very important to us. We're involved in with a lot of conservation organizations, a lot of sportsmen's organizations, and really put a lot of time and money into promoting using it.
I was only kidding you, Joe. I was only kidding you.
Right?
Exactly.
Well, it's a very important subject to us, and I think you're going to see in this coming year, we're going to invest more and more time and money into promoting safety.
Well, let me ask you this. We have some serious problems in California regarding trigger locks and vaults and all kinds of things. So how has that affected your business in the air gun business? Has there been some lapovers from traditional firearms to what's happened to Daisy products over the years?
Well, a young person that starts off with a Daisy and does it right and learns the 10 basic safety lessons, this is the best safety right here. It's the only one that really works. If you take personal responsibility for your action, and you're accountable for what you do, and you learn things like patience and self-control, those are things that are going to stay with you for the rest of your life. You can start out shooting the Daisy, move on into a .22, a shotgun, be a sportsman or a hunter or a marksman, get involved in the Olympics, win an NCAA scholarship, but it all starts right here with a Daisy.
Listen, let me ask you this. You have a line of air guns called Power Line, I believe they are, and they have a distinct representation to regular firearms. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are afraid of regular firearms, but then there's a lot of people that really enjoy the Power Line because they represent what they actually have. So how is the Power Line product line doing now?
Well, the Power Line is our brand of adult high-velocity air guns. These air guns are used for pest control, small game hunting, and accuracy and marksmanship training.
Now, are they available in all states or just in certain states?
They're available in most states. There are some locations where you can't buy an air gun at all.
Now, would that be California and Massachusetts and New York?
I really don't want to get into regulations here without having them in front of me.
All right. Well, listen, Joe, I got to tell you something. Daisy was my first firearm of choice. And I want you to know there's a lot of us that feel that same way and just love your company and all the things that you do.
Well, we wish everybody luck and safe shooting, and let's spend some time with some young people and bring them into the sports. We're standing here at the SHOT Show with a lot of firearms dealers and a lot of great sports represented here. But it all starts with a Daisy. So let's each of us that enjoy the sports adopt somebody, bring them into the sport, and teach them the right way and the safe way to do it.
Darn good advice, Joe. Thank you very much.
Just like John Reynolds tried to
So Jay, you've been with Springfield Armory for a couple of years. Tell us about the new product line? What's going on there?
Well, Springfield's really excited about 2002 SHOT Show. We've got a bunch of new products. First time in a long time, we brought the M1 Garand back. We've got new production M1 Garand. We got them here at the SHOT Show, and we're actually shipping them to distributors as we speak. On the pistol side, we've taken our standard 1911 loaded pistols and we added some new features. We're putting hexagon grip screws on them now, as well as all of them have the ILS locking systems, and a biggie is we're putting ambidextrous safeties on them now as well.
Well, let me ask you this. They passed some laws in California here on January 1st requiring drop tests and all these sort of things. Has Springfield Army gone through that process in California?
Roger that. As painful as it may be, Springfield has complied with all the California DOJ requests. All of our pistols that we sell in California have been drop tested. We've gone through the appropriate laboratories, sacrificed the guns, paid the cost to get them certified for sale in California. 1911s as well as the new XD Extreme Duty pistols have all been tested.
How did you choose a proper trigger lock? How did the company choose a proper trigger lock for the California market?
Actually, that's kind of interesting you asked that. The ILS system, the integral locking system that Springfield has on all of our 1911s was developed in-house in Springfield, and it's incorporated on all of our 1911s, and that lock is also approved as an approved locking device for the state of California.
Now, another thing is that you sell an M1A. Is that a restricted firearm now in California, or is that still available?
No, that's still available in California. We sell it into California with our proprietary muzzle brake. And so anybody in the state of California can own the M1A or the M1A Scout as well.
What about trigger locks for the M1A?
Trigger locks for those are just a standard cable lock. That's all that's required to ship those in California.
So the cable lock goes what, through the barrel?
Cable lock goes through the action of the gun. Locks open the action so that the action cannot operate.
All right, because obviously on an M1A you can pull the action, the trigger housing right out of the firearm, right?
Right. Well, if you do that, the gun's inoperable anyway. If you pull the trigger housing.
Well, listen. What about storage?
I'm sorry.
What about storage for there's a new law in California about having a vault and all these other things before you have a firearm.
Actually, I don't have any real comment on that. I'm not up on the storage requirement end. We pretty much just stay up on the manufacturing requirements.
All right. Well, listen, we thank you for your time so much. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jake. Bye. Hi, Mike. We're here at the Winchester booth, and we're in a particular area of interest about ammunition. So, Mike, tell us everything you need to know about ammunition.
Well, hopefully ammunition's reliable, and when you pull the trigger, it goes bang, and it gets whatever you're shooting at, a play target or a deer or a duck or whatever.
Hey, my 2-year-old could have said that. Now, we want a little more technical information.
Well, that's a start, and get reliability, you have to have good components. You have to have good priming, good propellants, good bullets, because that's the only thing that meets the target. Like,
you know, one of the things that came out a couple years ago was they were going to start chemical tagging all of the powders. Are they doing that now?
No, they are not. They couldn't get reliable ignition when they put taggants into powder.
Right.
The powder wouldn't perform properly. And the powders are a propellant. They're not an explosive. So they burn progressively, and they push bullets. They don't explode bullets. So it's not really an explosive anyway. So the tagging thing has really been set aside because it doesn't work.
I'll be darned. Now, there's another thing that I've heard as a rumor, is that all of our powders are coming from Australia or Czechoslovakia or some other place.
Not true. We have 4 or 5 guys right behind me. I've just been talking to them. They're from a powder plant in Florida, which used to be the Winchester plant, and is now a different company, Primex or whatever. But there's powder made there, powder made in New Jersey. No, there are a lot of powders made in this country.
Does the EPA get involved in all that process, however?
Oh, absolutely. EPA is involved in all that stuff, and they have to control the effluents and every aspect of it.
So it's a lot tougher to make powder nowadays than it was 30 years ago.
Yes, it is. Everything's tougher. I think everybody's tightened up and more concerned what they do with chemicals and disposable items.
Now, there's that modern day folk story that anyone can find out about the ballistics of any bullet that comes out of the end of a barrel.
Well, I heard they're starting to fingerprint guns in like Maryland and saving a bullet. Well, say a revolver. It has 6 cylinders in it.
Right.
The fingerprint on that shell case is going to be different from every cylinder, and they're just firing one, so they're really not gaining much with that. They will get some rifling marks on the bullet itself. That's about the only thing they can tell about it.
Now, as far as Winchester is concerned, has the cost of production gone up based on all of the laws and regulations that have been required?
Sure, cost of production's gone up a lot for those reasons, but we keep trying to manage costs by more efficient methods, better material handling, and methods like good manufacturing methods. So we're trying to keep the cost down through manufacturing, even though component costs and regulation costs have gone up.
Now, some of the anti-gunners have said they're going to sue bullet manufacturers because they've got a product that hurts people. Have you heard that, or?
Yeah, I heard it, and most of the court cases that have been tried have been defeated. You know, it's been what you call not guilty, but they're saying that there's no basis, no merit for that, and they've been thrown out of court. So I don't think you're going to see that happen very widespread.
So basically, right now, we can feel safe with that. We can still get bullets, but you know, in California, in city of Los Angeles, you can't even buy ammunition there.
Well, that's what I hear, and that's tough. What about the poor people wanting to defend themselves if there's a riot or a problem or a burglary spree or whatever? You know, it's tough on the individuals.
Now, there's another issue too that came about here last week. We heard about that it's difficult to transport ammunition that you buy in one state to another state. Have you heard any of that?
No, should not be a problem. That's all controlled. We can put ammunition on the airplane in our luggage, check luggage, bring it out here, and hunt legally. And it's all you got to keep it in the original cartons, and you're limited on how much weight you can bring. I think it's about 5 pounds, about 11 kilos, and no problem. Now, as long as you do it legally.
This sounds too exciting for us, but you know, do all of those laws apply in places like Massachusetts and California and New York?
Some states can be a little tougher than others, and I don't think it has any reduction in crime or anything. It's just what we call feel-good legislation. They do it because they feel like they have to do something, and something's better than nothing, even though it's not very effective.
Mike Jordan, you're a real credit to Winchester. We thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Okay, just step right into the shot.
All right. I'm Jeff Ray. I'm General Counsel of Beretta USA. I've been with the company since 1983. General Counsel since 1986.
Well, tell me, Jeff. You know, there's been some current gun law legislation in California on January 1st that had an impact on your company, mainly the drop test and also the trigger lock legislation. Can you broach that with us?
Sure. Well, the drop test requirement in California applies to handguns only. We have submitted for testing and had pass every handgun of our major line that we sell. So that hasn't been a problem for us technically. The big problem we've had is from cost. It costs a couple of $100 for each test, plus the cost of the guns that are destroyed in the testing or damaged in the testing. We estimate our cost for just the dozens of models that we've had tested have run into the tens of thousands of dollars, maybe close to $80,000 so far.
You know, one of the things, I hate to interrupt, but I do have a question. People would like to know what that drop test really entails. Are you familiar enough with that to tell us about just a typical drop test?
Sure. Well, one aspect of the test is dropping the gun onto hard concrete from about 3.5 feet high in a number of different positions, muzzle down, on the back, on the sides, and that chunks it up pretty well, as you can imagine. The key is that the gun not go off during that testing. There are also tests of functioning to make sure that the guns can fire 600 rounds without a certain number of malfunctions. Again, we haven't had any trouble passing those tests. Our own internal tests are much more strict. But it's time-consuming, it's expensive, and frankly, it's a disincentive for us when we have a small, let's say a limited number of a special edition gun. It costs so much to do this testing. There are models we are not selling in California simply for that reason.
Other states as well, Maryland or Massachusetts or New York as well?
Maryland had recently passed a requirement that any handgun shipped into the state by a manufacturer had to have a spent shell casing shot with the gun.
Once they introduced that regulation, handgun applications to buy handguns in Maryland dropped by 20%.
Why would that be?
I'm not sure. I think part of the reason is that the supply of handguns dried up. A lot of manufacturers had to figure out how to ensure that a gun that went to that state alone had a shell casing that was costly. We, for example, Beretta had to add $7 to the cost of our products, which becomes like a tax. So the guns became more expensive. It became more difficult to get them. The regulations were extremely confusing and cumbersome. Dealers had to send in long forms to the state police, and it's just had I don't think it's had any benefit in terms of law enforcement yet. It certainly had an impact on gun sales.
One of the things that I'm interested in is the events of 9/11 were reported in the paper that the sales of guns actually spiked for a moment and then have leveled off. Is that your read on it?
Yeah, we've seen that too. Handgun sales increased dramatically for us. Conversely, shotgun sales slowed down. People started buying guns for self-protection, and I guess decided to make a decision on a hunting shotgun for another year. It's slowed down some, but we're still doing well. We have a special edition gun, the United We Stand edition, that we're selling, and it's selling quite well. We donate proceeds from the sale of each of those guns to the New York Police Department and to the Pentagon Victims Fund.
Very nice. Listen, one of the things too that we're facing in California is the modified firearm transfer rule, which is another issue that's kind of bothersome in that if you take a Beretta firearm and in any way improve it or take it to a gunsmith, it's considered modified. Once modified, you can't transfer it. Have you heard that or not?
I'm not familiar with that regulation. No, I haven't been involved in that one, I'm afraid.
So basically, Beretta's just had to face a lot of additional cost for testing, a lot of additional cost for the regulations and abiding by the rules.
And it's more than that in some cases. California also has a new requirement that a certified lock be sent with each gun sold, long guns and handguns. The problem with that is there's only one laboratory in the country that's certified by California to test these locks. They've done a valiant job, but they have demand from the entire industry seeking their assistance. And now it's past January 1st, and nobody can get locks for sale with guns in California. So firearm sales in California are basically being stopped because people cannot get certified locks from the suppliers. In Massachusetts, the state has said that it's illegal to sell a handgun in the state unless it's on a published roster of acceptable guns. But the state refuses to release the published roster. So they've got a nice little trick that they're accomplishing there, is some effective gun control by saying you can't sell unless we tell you can sell, but we're not going to tell you can sell.
Let's go back to that trigger lock issue.
Sure.
How do you select the proper trigger lock? Do you go through a exhausting internal testing phase before you choose a trigger lock for any particular firearm?
We do two things. We have our internal testing, and then everything, of course, is subject to the testing by the independent laboratory. So we always test. We won't sell anything unless we're sure that it's.
So do you outsource that? Do you choose other manufacturers to create your trigger locks?
We have, for the most part, yes. We use cable locks on most of our handguns and long guns. We also sell the Sacco bolt-action rifles with something called the Key Concept, which is an internal lock that the Sacco company developed in Finland.
Last question. Certified firearms in California.
Right.
Without the drop test, you don't get to sell your firearm or transfer it or trade it.
Right.
So are there any Beretta firearms that you have not submitted yet for testing that would be unavailable in California?
Oh yeah, there are probably a dozen models that we have not sold in California because the cost of testing just aren't really worth it for the limited number of guns that we'd be selling there.
Jeff, wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Thanks, appreciate it.
If I get down to my last clay target, and if I shoot that last clay target away, and now I want to continue shooting, I got all that ammunition and I got all those vanilla guns, but I have no target. Well, this is a problem. And I did not eject that empty cartridge. I did use that empty cartridge.
Maybe it's just being ramped up like.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, how you doing?
Just fine. You're with Marlin Firearms, is that right?
Yes, my name's Tony Eshelman. I'm a marketing manager at Marlin Firearms. I've been with the company for 23 and a half years, and we're here enjoying the SHOT Show in Las Vegas.
Well, how's the show been going for you?
It's been terrific. Crowds, I'm quite sure, are breaking records. Been very, very busy.
Let me ask you this. After 9/11 this last year, did your firearm sales increase at all?
Not noticeably, mainly because we don't really make home defense type products. Most of our products are for target shooting and hunting and plinking and so forth, so it didn't affect us very much.
Let me ask you this. In January, in the state of California, they passed several gun laws, including trigger locks and also modified firearms regulations, and also issues that may have a drop test and things like that may have affected your company. Can you tell us how it's affected Marlin in any way?
Yes, we've responded to that law by developing 3 different locks, which have been approved by the California designated laboratories for use on all of our products.
Does that include the lever action?
That includes the lever actions. Every product we make has been packed with an approved California certified lock since January 1st.
Let me ask you something that no one's broached recently, and that is, let's say someone purchases a Marlin firearm, they use the firearm, they lose the approved lock. Are you able to supply prior owners of Marlin firearms with approved locks?
Sure. All they have to do is contact us, and we're selling locks at our cost to distributors, dealers, consumers, whoever needs it.
Is there any identifying stamp on these locks that would say qualified for California or New York or Maryland or?
Yes. The package that the lock comes in has a header card on it that says California certified.
Let me ask you this: how much? What are you guessing that the cost to Marlin Firearms was for all of these different regulations that have come up recently?
The California regulations,
yes, sir.
Specifically, we have been packing locks with our guns for many years, since the mid '80s. This lock is probably 50% more than the previous ones. I think our out-of-pocket costs are in the $3 to $4 range.
So you pass that on, obviously, to the consumer.
We have passed our just out-of-pocket costs along in the price of the gun. Yes.
Now, also, what about retrofitting your distributors that already had existing Marlin firearms in their inventories prior to the passage of this law? What's your policy on that?
They can order locks to cover their inventory directly from us.
Are you trading them back one for one, or are you just or do they have to come out of pocket for the price of a new lock?
I believe we're charging them for the price of the new lock, because the other lock, the lock that was previously packaged with it, can still be used in other ways.
Now, one of the things also, the last question I'll ask you is about certified firearms. In California, there's a law for pistols initially, I believe, which would say that if they have to be capable of accepting the drop test in destroying the firearm, figuring out if it'll fire or not. What about long guns? What if they were to propose a drop test for long guns? Well, how would that affect you?
I believe we would be fine. We have drop tests that we conduct now that are to industry specifications, and I can't imagine that California would be any more stringent than what we're doing right now.
Well, listen, Tony, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for Marlin Firearms. They should be proud to have you with them.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how you doing today, Ron?
Good. So, you're with RSR. What is RSR?
RSR is a wholesale distributor of guns and accessories. Been in business 25 years now.
Now tell me, where do you send all your firearms?
Where do we send them?
Yes.
Anywhere that we can.
All over the country?
All over the country, including Guam. We even have an export division in New York that deals with importation and exportation.
But let me ask you this, what kind of firearms do you send?
We sell, if I gave you a list, we'd be here all day.
Right.
I could probably name 2 major manufacturers that we don't do. We do all the others.
Is that right?
Yes.
So you send all the different states.
Yes.
And you have to kind of pay attention to what the state laws are before
Absolutely.
Wow,
Absolutely.
it sounds like you have to have a big legal department to do all that.
Well, we have a full-time attorney who works in our corporate headquarters, and he helps us sort out all the different laws that come up. We stay in contact through the internet with the California Department of Justice, different groups like the NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the NRA. We try to keep real active and proactive about what's going on with all the different laws and how they affect us.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, in California this year, they passed some pretty interesting laws regarding child safety locks, certified firearms, modified transfer of firearms. How is this affecting your company?
Well, the way it affects us is, first of all, the law that went into effect a couple of years ago was any handgun that was going to be sold in California had to go through certain rigorous tests by an independent company. And until they passed that test and got listed on the DOJ website, we could not sell them in California. We actually went through a period of time where, okay, now we can sell this gun well, now we've got 10 guns on the list, now we've got 30 guns on the list. It was really a kind of a long, painful thing through several months, to where now we're basically at least offering California a variety of almost anything they could want, but not everything that they want.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about there's a certified trigger lock list that is about 600 pages that the DOJ has in California. How do you figure out which is the approved trigger lock to send to California?
Actually, what we could only do with that is get very generic with the whole thing. In other words, try to find out which locks fit the most guns. Because if you try to go into that DOJ website and sort it out by gun, try to transfer it to your database, you could hire somebody full-time to work for weeks figuring out that spreadsheet just so that we can say, okay, this gun needs this lock, this gun needs this lock. It's really the responsibility of the dealers in California to know what they're selling. This kind of falls on them. It's too massive. We are carrying about 6 different types of locks, either trigger locks, cable locks, some that actually look like bicycle locks that can go through the action and possibly the magazine well of the gun. And one that actually folds over and totally encases the gun.
You know, interestingly enough, the certified drop test has to be renewed on an annual basis. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, for example, a manufacturer passes the certified test and then fails to renew, then you can't sell guns in California anymore, can you?
That is correct. I think it would be a very rare thing for a manufacturer to know he's got a gun that's legal in California and forget to pay the amount. It did cause a little uproar towards the end of the year because the expiration date started showing on the DOJ website. It kind of panicked a lot of retailers saying, I've got this gun, I just bought it, now they're saying that after 12/31 I won't be able to sell it. Well, no, that's not exactly true. What it means is the manufacturer has to resubmit his listing fee just to make sure it's back on the DOJ list.
Yeah, one other thing that's interesting is you have in the past sold antique or firearms that are not modern day firearms, haven't you done that?
Surplus, not exactly antique.
Correct.
Old Argentine Mausers, Mosin Nagant type rifles.
Sure, things like that. And
sure.
Now, what would happen if you had to pass a drop test for every one of those? Or who would they go after? Some of these manufacturers are out of business and have been for many, many years.
No, actually, if the gun is before a certain year and falls under certain criteria, it's classified as a curio or relic.
Right.
And those are still legal in California if it falls under that classification.
I gotcha. Okay, so anyway, what do you think this? Just guesstimate for me. I'm not looking for a specific number, but how much do you think that firearms laws have cost RSR in the last couple of years, just trying to keep up with what's going on?
Well, we're divided up into 5 warehouse locations. I work in the Reno warehouse. Our location has California as a whole for the state, and I couldn't give you a percentage or a dollar amount because we try to find ways to work around it. If a customer needs this gun and can't get it, we can always suggest something else that's very similar.
Right.
So we try to work around that issue, work with the retailer, give him what he wants regardless, or get close to it.
Are there similarities in the restrictions on firearms from California, Maryland, and New York, and what's that other state that's kind of tough to go around? Maryland?
That one I'm not really qualified to answer because we have a New York warehouse that deals with those northeastern states.
I see.
I know that New York has to have a fired casing in the box with the gun, or they can't sell it there.
One last question for you now, Steve. The DOJ, or not in California, and also the ATF federally, are having a tendency to make it tougher for mom and pop FFLs to do business. They're setting the bar a lot higher. Are you finding it because you supply to these FFL dealers, do you not?
Yes, we do.
All right. Absolutely. So are you seeing a vanishing of those breeds or less business because of that, or not?
The bigger, actually, it's working on both ends of the spectrum. The bigger dealers who are smart and quick and keep up with the changing laws and the changing regulations are actually seem to be getting bigger and doing more business. On the other end of the spectrum, what you call the mom and pop or the private FFL holder, I'm seeing a lot of those who are finding it too difficult and finally saying, I've had enough.
Listen, Steve, we appreciate your time and thank you so much for all you do for RSR.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Hi, Les.
How you doing?
Les Bear, you're pretty famous for custom firearms over the years. Tell us how long you've been in business.
As Les Bear Custom Inc. since about 1991.
And what kind of firearms do you work on?
We just build our own custom pistols and custom rifles.
Well, you know, it's pretty interesting. All of the events of 9/11 have kind of transferred our country into a different kind of a thought process. Did you have a big increase in firearm sales after the 9/11 events?
Not a big increase, it was a steady increase. And then it leveled off and now it's holding that level.
Let me ask you this, in California and other states in the nation, there's some pretty interesting firearm laws that have been instituted here as of the first of the year. And since you operate, you make custom-made firearms.
Right.
How has that affected your business?
Affected us a lot. We had to go through some pretty severe testing and evaluation procedures, which were very expensive and time-consuming.
Well, when you say expensive, what kind of a general number are you looking at for one firearm, and the process how long would it take for the process to
Well, the
complete?
process could take like upwards of a month, and you have to submit 3 complete firearms, and the testing evaluation with the ammunition would come to about $2,000 for each set of firearms.
Now, do you have to license these on an annual basis after you once get them certified?
Yes.
Now, what about people that have had Les Bear firearms in the past that live in states like California and Maryland and New York? Can they still send their firearms to you to get repaired?
I don't know that for sure. I think they can, but I'm not sure.
And what about tell us more about that drop test. Was that fully explained to you what the drop test was?
Oh yeah, it was fully explained, but I mean, after they do all this, they're rendered useless for sale, let's put it that way.
Correct. Now, one other thing we have is a safety lock requirement now in California for trigger locks, or there are different variations on that. What type of trigger lock did you select for your new gun sales?
We have a cable lock, but as far as I know, I'm not quite 100% sure on this, is that any manufacturer in the state of California has to supply a trigger lock, and now the dealers must supply a certified trigger lock for each gun from the manufacturer coming into the state.
Yeah, we have another little problem over there in California to talk about with this modified firearm law, or a certified firearm. They haven't been drop tested, and they have been modified in any way. It's very difficult to transfer or sell those firearms now in those particular states. Is there anything that you're looking at to kind of work those problems out with California, or is there things?
No, not right now. We got our hands full just getting them certified.
I got you. So how many more firearms do you have to certify yet to get the complete line back up and running?
We got 10 certified right now, and that's all we're going to do for now.
Russ Bear, one of the real icons of the industry. Thank you so much. Nice having you with us.
Thank you.
I haven't found her for an hour and a half.
Just a second, right there. So, hi Eric, how you doing today?
Good afternoon. Doing very well, sir. My name is Eric Von Bossi. I'm product manager at SIG Arms. I've been with the company approximately 3 years, and I'm here to discuss any issues that you might have dealing with legislative issues.
Well, listen, let me tell you, we're interested to know from the manufacturer's viewpoint, since the events of 9/11 and also the new legislation that came about in California and other states on January 1st, how inconvenient has it been for you as a gun manufacturer as far as meeting all of the new requirements and laws?
Well, to be honest with you, and we've been dealing with some pretty stringent legislative requirements for the past 2 years or so, and it has been an inconvenience. We do it because we're required and because it's basically good citizenship to do so, but we currently have 4 different states that have unique regulatory requirements, with more adding all the time. So it does add cost, and it does add time that, of course, pass on to the consumer.
One of the things in California was on trigger locks, and you know, SIG has such a wide variety of different firearms and so on. How did you come about with the thought of what's the proper trigger lock?
Well, and I can tell you we're still looking for the perfect trigger lock. I'm involved with the ASTM process, which is trying to federalize or come up with a national standard for trigger locks. The state of California Department of Justice has set specific testing standards. We've been fortunate in the fact that those standards are enforced on the gun lock manufacturer. But it's been very difficult for us to find a one-size-fits-all that meets the California requirements, and we're still in our search process and don't expect to complete that for a number of months.
Can you give us a good idea about how many different types of firearms that SIG is really offering to the general public?
Certainly. We have, starting with the handgun line, we have a series of classic pistols, 6-hour classic pistols, which comprise of about 8 to 9 models. We have 2 polymer frame models. We have a single action model, the P210. We have a Mauser M2 pistol, which is a double action only. We have a 22 caliber pistol. And then on the rifle side, we carry 3 distinct lines of rifles: the Mauser Magnum, the Sauer line of rifles, and the Blaser line of rifles, along with a line of rifles from SAN Swiss, which used to be SIG Arms in Switzerland, and a line of shotguns. So trying to find a lock that fits a wide variety of manufactured guns that we carry has been very difficult to both meet the requirements of California and also the proposed national standard that would be
one additional thing, Eric, is that there's a drop test required in California specifically for each firearm to make sure it's safe.
Yes, sir.
So tell us about how inconvenient and expensive that's been as a process.
For inconvenience, it's been mainly the testing time, and of course for California they require 3 locks. Massachusetts also requires a drop test to be done by an independent lab for a total of 5 handguns for each model that has to be tested. So I can say it's taken us about a 6-month period to get each of our models we offer in California tested, with a cost in excess of $50,000 for the performance testing and drop testing.
Unbelievable. Well, listen, are you're going to have to pass that on to the consumer then, as far as the cost is concerned, don't you?
Well, unfortunately, it's like everything else. We're a company that works on a pretty tight margin, like most companies, and to stay in business and offer the products with the safety and reliability features we like to offer, that cost eventually translates to the consumer. It's just too high a cost for the manufacturer to eat.
One thing that I didn't know about SIG, do you do repairs, in-factory repairs and refits, or any modifications to firearms if I was to send you my SIG?
We do have a service department that will rework the firearm or repair anything under a factory warranty program. Anything that we would do would be by a factory trained technician at SIG and ensures that the safety and function of the firearm is not compromised.
Let me ask this. If I was to ask you to put a laser sighting internal device into my SIG or some other thing that doesn't come naturally with the SIG out of the box, would you be able to perform that?
No, sir, we wouldn't, because it would void the warranty for us. If it replaces any genuine SIG parts or components in the pistol, we would not be able to do that.
Eric, you know, SIG is a big company. You sell a lot of firearms all over the country. How have these regulations affected your sales to I guess the big four, which are New York and Maryland and Massachusetts and California?
It's been a little more difficult in the fact that it's taken us a little bit of time, like most manufacturers, to get the same number of products into those states. For some of our niche products, for instance, the P210 pistol, we don't sell many of those nationwide, so we haven't entered those into California or Massachusetts because the testing cost doesn't justify the numbers that we sell of those units. So it has narrowed the field in some specific states as to the types of products we can make available.
Eric Von Bosky, what a wonderful interview. Thank you so much from American Rifleman News Television.
You're more than welcome, sir.
Thank you for watching American Rifleman News Television. We hope the information provided from the SHOT Show is informative. Join us next time on the show that politicians watch, American Rifleman News Television.